out of anger, I wrote a LinkedIn post, which was basically along the lines of, if you've got 20 plus years in the technology space and you're not working currently, in other words, you're a green banner wearer, you're open to work. I was actually worried that with ageism biting so acutely that we might lose a whole generation of people. My generation, your generation, the generation of the founders of the recruitment industry. It was a very kind of passionate post that ended up with 250,000 impressions, over 5,000 likes.
Wow.
And it just went crazy within 48 hours.
Joining me on this week's Recruiters Recruitment podcast is a very dynamic fellow Gen Xer, Simon Bucknell, who is the founder of EMBS Talent Group, Peak Intelligence, and GenX Talent. And we talk around the GenX talent pool, the challenges that we face, and what menopause and manopause really means and what we should be thinking about when it comes to our own bias when dealing with people going through this, how we can educate ourselves better. There's a whole piece around AI education as well. And we talk around the legacy, what we should be thinking about. Now, this episode isn't just for Gen Xers, so I hope you're clicking on this anyway because you want to educate yourselves. This is a true DEI episode. So I hope you enjoy, and let's jump in without further ado. This is Lysha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment podcast. And I am so excited to introduce to our global community today somebody who I've had the pleasure of speaking to in the past, but we're going to be talking today about topics and a whole narrative, which is so important to me on a personal and professional level that God knows how long this is going to go on for. That's all I'm going to say. You're in for a ride. Without further ado, from the beautiful Peak District, Derbyshire, Simon Bucknell, who is the founder of EMBS Group, Peak Intelligence, and GenX Talent. Welcome to you today, Simon. How are you?
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm trying to stay warm because it's a bit cold and windy in the Peak District in Derbyshire, which is where I am, but feeling good despite lots of challenges in the world right now. And it's tough out there, isn't it?
It's very tough out there. We are recording this on a soggy February afternoon in 2026. My previous guest was in Kenya, telling me how beautiful and sunny it was. And I was like, right, well, I'll jump on a plane there. But I'm hoping when we're listening to this, it'll be spring, there'll be sunshine, there'll be warmth, the mornings will be lighter. I think that at the moment, there are a lot of challenges out there, and we want this podcast to be real, but equally, we can't change anything about the geopolitics. We can't change anything about the government. We can vote differently. But there you go. I'll leave that there. So let's talk around your business, because your organic growth of your three business areas that I've just explained there is really exciting. And then we're going to see where the conversation goes. So over to you, Simon, what you do and how you do it.
Yeah. So look, in 2003, when we set the business up, I had a vision, which I think is starting to come true now, around what a true talent business should be all about. And traditionally, for many years, it's been perm contract across technology and engineering, high quality. I've always felt that recruitment is a professional service in the same way as accountancy and those types of service industries are. I've always been quite proud to believe that. When I started in the industry, it was suits, it was company cars, it was professionalism, and it was about learning and development. So we've seen all sorts of things happen in our industry over this last 25 years. I think more recently with COVID and with AI, we're in this incredible inflection point. And it's exciting because it feels like, at long last, and it might be quite an outspoken thing to say, but it feels like we're at that point now where only the strong will survive in our industry. And what I mean by that is, and no disrespect to the keyword matches of our industry, but the wraparound of true consulting. I think we're in that age and generation of true consulting, which I'm so happy about, because I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, like you have, Lysha, around what this industry has to offer and not, as the case may be. So I think it's a really exciting time at an incredibly challenging time. And arguably, it might be that actually now we need that consulting capability more than we ever have done, as we go through this moment of AI automation, agentic AI, that's really going to impact the marketplace and the world we live in. So
absolutely,
going from that traditional kind of sense of being a professional service all the way through to this exact moment has been a real hell of a ride. And as a founder, I think most people will be able to relate to the fact that it's never plain sailing. It's incredibly challenging. We've been through tough times and good times, and we're still here. Like, we're still here. We're still doing what we do.
Still telling a tale.
We're still enjoying it, and nearly 30 years. Over 1,000 personal placements, and many thousand as an organisation. Super proud moment for me. But
Good.
we are at this inflection point, aren't we?
I think so, definitely. And I think if we lens out into what's happening as from a humanity point of view, it's the biggest change in human history since the Industrial Revolution, which is in some ways very exciting. In other ways, it's quite daunting. And I think the recruitment industry is one of those amazing chameleons, which, I've done nearly 30 years like yourself. So, we can take the lens out approach and go, well, look, if you just took 2008, 2009 on its own, you probably wouldn't have stayed in the industry. You'd gone and done something else. But the fact is, we go in cycles, and it's about how you adapt and how you change. And I think it's a really daunting but exciting time to run a recruitment business, regardless of what the sector is, because it is about the time that you define your service as a human being to other human beings. All the AI for me, I mean, the summary that I tend to say right now in season 6 is it's taking out the grunt work and allowing you to do the human bit. That's what AI should be doing. So, but obviously there's a challenge around, the number of jobs and the volume of jobs, which tends to not affect maybe Gen X so much. It tends to be affecting the entry level the entry level people. So you've got 3 different brands: so EMBS Talent Group, you've got GenX Talent, and you've got Peak Intelligence. So what do each of the 3 do?
Well, let me just take you on this little journey very quickly, and I'll try to keep it brief because I could end up waffling forever. But yeah, ultimately, as a Gen Xer and as a recruiter, I've always felt that ageism, in particular in our industry, is something that we've always been aware of, but we've never really been able to put our finger on it. Actually, ageism is invisible, almost invisible. And I think, despite the fact that the recruitment industry wants to do well, do the best they can as regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're always going to struggle because we're being dictated to by our customers. And if the ageism is up in the supply chain, it follows back down to us. And ultimately, recruiters need to make a living and need to pay their mortgage. So they end up capitulating and kind of just being at the mercy of their customers. One thing happened last year, which tipped me over a little bit, I think, made me very angry, was when I was working with a client. They asked me to get involved in a sort of senior business development role, which I was resourcing 4 great candidates, 2 in their 30s, 1 in their mid 40s, and 1 in their early 50s. And within just maybe 10 minutes, the 2 older candidates were rejected. It was almost impossible to have really read their profiles and CVs. It was just a blatant rejection. And I said to my colleague, Kelly, who is bottom end of Gen X, you know what, Kelly, that is ageism right there.
Absolutely.
And in that moment, we decided 2 things, really. One, we didn't want to work with the client anymore, so we tried to figure out how we could politely walk away from that. But the second thing for me was I felt like I needed to mobilize in that point and start to try to make a difference. And I out of anger, I wrote a LinkedIn post, which was basically along the lines of, if you've got 20 plus years in the technology space and you're not working currently, in other words, you've been, you're a green banner wearer, you're open to work. I was actually worried that with ageism biting so acutely that we might lose a whole generation of people. My generation, your generation, the generation of the founders of the recruitment industry that might be watching this podcast.
Yep.
And it was a very kind of passionate post that ended up with 250,000 impressions, over 5,000 likes. Wow. And it just went crazy within 48 hours. And
wow.
Somebody messaged me and said, hey, Simon, look, you recruiters, you talk a good game, but, what are you doing about it? And in that moment, I thought, I've got the experience, the capability, and some AI skills up my sleeve. I'm going to launch a platform that I'm going to call Rec for Good, not Tech for Good, Rec for Good. I'm going to set up a platform that introduces Gen X people to pro-age, pro-experience employers.
Good.
I'm going to set it up for free. I'm going to upset the recruitment industry by saying, hey, look, you guys aren't going to make any fees out of this, and we're going to make it happen. See what happens. So I, through my contacts and my capabilities, set up the job board effectively in 10 working days, and the LinkedIn community kind of followed me on this journey, and I did it. I got it live, genxtalent.co.uk, 10 working days, fully operational job board.
Amazing.
So that's front end, so you can advertise your jobs, people can log in the back end, a fully working platform. And it was fun, and people were sort of like, well done for doing this, it's amazing for you to represent Max. And It was a great lot of fun. And in that moment, I recognized that GenX in particular had other challenges, that they weren't just about careers, although that was a big thing. As we move into this sort of uncharted world of AI, they also needed to think a little bit about how they could remain relevant in the marketplace, and how they could be attractive to prospective employers. And one of the things that really struck me was kind of two areas. One, how to build brand, how to build comms, how to use LinkedIn, how to communicate their value and actually reconnect with their values, number one.
Yes.
And number two was about AI literacy. And I found through my network a really great AI instructor, and I was talking to him. He said, "Look, Simon, you know what? The AI literacy thing is not a Gen X problem; it's an everybody problem.
Everybody
Everybody
problem.
needs this."
Absolutely.
And then that weekend, I was like, "Well, I'm not going to set up the Gen X AI Academy. I'm going to set up a completely new AI Academy and build out AI literacy skills." And I came up with Peak Intelligence. I live in the
Right.
the Peak District, and
I love
climbing
it.
the Peak
It's a
Mountains.
pun. Good pun. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what we did. And we started what we call Base Camp, which is the AI literacy level 1. And that sort of went live in December, and now in February, because people might be watching this obviously in the spring, but in that time we've trained over 200 people, giving them AI literacy skills, and we're super proud of that. And just to kind of finish this little bit off, for me, that means that as a recruitment business, we're able to represent, everybody across all of those generations, and have a very much a rec for good offer within our portfolio of products. But we're also involved in talent in the sense of building AI literacy skills and baking those AI literacy skills into the workflows of people. And that means that we can, source people, source talent, train talent, and maintain that talent in the workplace right up into your 60s, even beyond. And
Absolutely.
I believe that, that's the future of what a talent consulting business should be all about. All of those different components working
It
hard.
is. It's holistically, isn't it? It's looking at all angles of it and engaging with your talent pool and engaging with your clients at the same time and adding something totally different. Well, thank you for that. Very succinct, and it was very good storytelling. So I guess what we're going to talk about today is something that it's a phrase that I thought only I used in jest almost to my boyfriend, who's obviously who is also Gen X. And I want to put this topic right at the front of everybody's mind because I'm personally going through menopause at the moment, and I talk about it very publicly. I have no shame about any human topic, by the way, because I'm like, we're all humans. Why does anyone got any stigma about anything? Safe space. And I talk about it because having realized how many of my symptoms are impacting my day-to-day job, I'm thinking, well, I'm guessing other women are going through the same, and there's obviously a lot more education around it. But it's how we introduce and engage men into the conversation. And I know it's something that you're extremely passionate about and have talked about before. And the phrase manopause, where men who are of certain stage in life as well also experience a decline in testosterone and start to see physical and emotional and physiological changes too, which might coincide with a woman's menopause. So I guess give me your perspective, where you can talk about your personal journey, but where are you seeing it impact, particularly within the recruitment space, where this conversation sits right now in 2026?
Wow, that's a heck of a question to answer.
I know.
I think the first thing to say that it is an absolute fact of life that people go through changes in their life, and it's also a fact of life that I think maybe Gen X and our parents didn't talk about it really, and men don't really talk about it to women unless they might talk to their wives about it. I think what happened initially was when I started to talk to Gen X women and coach Gen X women in this moment, we ended up getting onto the subject, and actually, I, in a way, quite enjoyed having conversations about menopause with women, because like, who is this guy? Like, I've never talked to anybody about menopause as a
Love
man.
it. Yeah.
And what I suddenly realized was that actually menopause for women is a huge challenge because it affects their confidence in the workplace. It affects their mental health in the workplace.
Yeah.
And I think we just need to open up the conversations about it as men talking to women. I think, I've had conversations with various women. We joke about, brain fog, ability to kind of think on your feet sometimes. And I think we just need to be more sensitive to that. think Gen X women in particular have a whole range of different things happening all at once. Not only have we got a terrible job market, not only is menopause affecting everything, including confidence, I think we just need to be more sensitive towards the needs of everybody. I also think that the idea of a menopause scenario, hormonal changes in men, is just starting off.
I agree. Yeah,
I think
yeah.
we're only just starting to understand the impact of low testosterone on our mood, on our mental health, on our
On your
ability.
energy.
And I think I can foresee a time when men at a certain age will go and get a standard blood test to test testosterone levels, and then will take hormone replacement to make them feel strong, fit, well.
Yeah.
I sense that's where I'm at. I mean, I've just been through a hormone testosterone test. I'm a little bit low. There's treatment out there. I feel pretty good about where I am physically and mentally. But maybe it's just a thing that we just need to all explore in Gen X and just accept
Absolutely.
that for what it is. And also understand that in order to operate at the highest level of performance, we just need to look after ourselves. We need to be focused on ourselves. And Lysha, I know you've got kids. I've got 4 kids, running a busy business. And my life is dedicated to other people. I think a lot of founders live that way. We're servant leaders. It's all about our team. It's all about our family.
Yeah.
You know what? Sometimes it's also about us.
I mean, there's the old expression, isn't there, that you put your own oxygen mask on first. And the other thing about Gen X, don't know if it's the same with your peer group and not just recruitment leaders, but just generally your cohort of peers, is we're the sandwich generation. So we've probably got aging parents. We've probably got, I mean, my kids are growing up, they're adults, but you don't stop being a parent, as I've learned very recently. So all of those things that you've said, I mean, women, we have testosterone, they're still not tested that and made that part of the HRT that you get provided on the NHS. I'm still to even go on that journey. I'm on HRT for estrogen and progesterone, but I'm still menstruating, so I don't necessarily need it yet. But I just think we need to have these conversations with no shame, with no embarrassment. You just talked about that. I would like to think that there will be true equitability, that yes, women's health is generations behind men's health, because obviously all the tests and science has always been up to, I think it's the 60s on men's bodies, or on menopause. It was on aging women's bodies in their 70s and 80s rather than women in their 30s and their 40s. So I think we're just the reason I want to have this conversation is, I'm not purporting to be a medical professional or, a science-based professional, but what I am is a woman living it. And what I am, as are you, I'd like to think that I'm a facilitator and a conduit to the conversations between employer and employee, that these are safe conversations to have. And what you just said, I really just want to go back on a point that you made, and I imagine there'll be so many people going, oh my God, that's me, that you'll be mid-flow in a conversation. Maybe you're hosting a podcast, maybe you're training a room of trainee recruiters, maybe you're delivering a presentation to a client. And when that brain fog hits, there ain't nothing you can do to get the words back. There's nothing you can do to get the flow. And I know that it's a really common thing. I've often literally been in a very safe conversation with a founder, and she's just gone, it's gone. I literally can't remember what I was talking about. And you're in trouble if we're both on low estrogen that day, because we both just have no idea what you're talking about. That's where AI is really useful, because we can go back and have a look. What were we talking about? But joking aside, I think it's really important to create a safe space, isn't it? That these things should be talked about. What can I do as your employer to support you on this?
I just think that it's really hard for organizations to have those open conversations and those safe spaces. I think that you and I are of the school that we really want to create that in our own businesses. We really want to have that level of honesty with our teams, and we want our teams to trust us to have that. I believe that I can have conversations with my team about everything that they're going through. And I think often we underestimate, when we hire people for our teams and our clients, that we hire everything about that person. We hire literally everything in their lives. It's not just about what they do in the 9 to 5. I think the difficulty there is, certainly for our clients and us, is where's the line? What can you ask? What can't you ask? What conversations can you or can't you have? We're at this really difficult, dangerous place around the fear of litigation if we do something wrong or we say something wrong. And I think,
absolutely.
When we get criticized in recruitment for not being able to pass on feedback to candidates, is because our clients are so terrified of what they can and can't say.
Really?
Yeah, I think don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, I'm not using it as an excuse, but I think we've lost the art of honesty. I think it's come from the fact that we are terrified to maybe have some of those honest conversations, especially on the client side.
Are you talking about being woke in terms of our language, or?
Well, yeah, I'm talking about not necessarily being woke. I'm talking about literally what you can and cannot say legally. Now, you could
Legally?
call that
Okay.
whatever you
Okay.
want,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But it's a case of if you push the woke conversation of freedom of speech too far, are you going to get yourself in really hot water?
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think people genuinely want to do the right thing, but sometimes they struggle. And maybe I'm taking the conversation in a slightly different direction, but I'm sensing that people might want to do the right thing, might want to have those safe spaces, but then pull back from that a little bit as well. They don't know how to navigate that.
Yeah, no, I do hear what you're saying 100%. And I'd like to think that you and I are not unique in this conversation, and that there are organizations. I mean, there are so many initiatives out there in terms of educational pieces, but I'm just really keen to bring it to the forefront of people's, mindfulness when they're maybe going through an appraisal, maybe going through an interview process, maybe just literally, like you said before, a founder who's a solo founder sat there going, I just don't have the confidence to, how can I be a keynote speaker? How can I present to this client? And just being more mindful and being more aware of it, and the impact that it is going to have from a commercial point of view, but also just in terms of our well-being. Because you talk, so um, coherently there around mental health, that the challenges that we face, and even just recruiters, it's a very stressful job that we do. Let's face it, and the challenges that we don't know are yet ahead of us.
Yeah.
Let's try and control the bits that we can control. So, in terms of the work that you do, particularly around the GenX talent piece, what, in terms of, I guess maybe removing the litigation for now, I think it's in terms of what we can work with currently. What sort of conversations should we be having, or could we be having with our clients to ensure that we are educated in the right language
Yeah.
and how to tackle ageism? And I'll give you an example. And it's a real example, and I have shared this on the LinkedIn post, and maybe it wasn't quite 250,000 impressions, but it was not far off. And I represented a female leader, which is still very rare in recruitment, hence my community. And she was my age. So I'm 51. This was last year, so she was 50. And unbelievable, like what she's achieved in her career. Like, we're talking MD of multi-million-pound businesses. She's exited. She's just one of those unicorns. And she, we got on. In fact, she didn't live far from you. She was Derbyshire way. Amazing energy, like my kind of person. And you just think, I would love to work for someone like you. One of my clients has been looking for months for an MD in their business, and called the founder up, said, I've got this individual, and even though I had her permission, I always shroud them in secrecy, so that for this reason. And he said, they sound great, but can I ask how old they are? And I said, absolutely not. Why are you asking me that? What relevance is that to what their skill set is? And he said, well, even though I'm looking for an MD, if they've already been an MD, I'm guessing they're over the hill, I think he said. And I went, right, well, that's something, and I went back and said, right, let's just go back to what you're looking for and why you've been looking for so long and why you've struggled. And, you can't scale your business. And, went back and did all of those things that I've been very well trained in by Joe Major. Shout out to Joe. And he just said, the thing is, I just feel that once someone's hit that point in their career, they've not got anything more to give. And I just said this person's name and I said, would you say that to me? And he said, absolutely not. And I said, but I'm the same age as this individual. So to me, you're taking a number on a birth certificate and making an assumption around behaviors, attitude, capability, potential. You can have somebody who is 20 years younger than me. On paper, you'd think they'd have more energy, but then maybe they're really lackluster. Maybe they're disappointed in life. So what would you do differently in that situation, maybe? Or what
Well,
advice would you give?
look, it sounds like you handled it, obviously really, really well. I think that as recruiters, we have to educate our clients about the size of the funnel. We have to make sure that they are accessing talent from all of the different kind of foundational areas. And, we absolutely have to ensure that when we position a shortlist, that we don't let our own bias affect what we do. And
Yeah.
I put my hands up. When I was a slip of a lad working in recruitment in the start of my career in my early 20s, I thought that somebody at 40 was old. No doubt I had age bias, 100% I
Biases.
did, right?
Yeah.
I think most people accept that that's a thing. But if you want to be a true professional recruiter
Yeah.
at the highest level, and I include, executive search, etc., in that
Yeah.
conversation, you have got to do the right thing. And then the right thing is to make sure that if that person has that skill set, that capability and experience, you must represent them. You must have conversations with the client at the onboarding stage about equal ops, age, diversity. You've got to educate your clients, because guess what? It reflects better on you
On you.
anyway. So if you're not having those true diversity and inclusion conversations at the onboarding stage, you're missing out on a massive opportunity,
Yeah,
not only to
definitely.
access the best possible talent, but to also position yourself as a true consultant and doing it the right way. I think sometimes you have to ensure that you are challenging the mentality, and also this idea that age is packaged up by society in a particular way, and also this concept around the fact that age equals expense.
Yeah.
We're expensive.
Mm.
We can't process information the way we used to. We're stuck in our ways.
Mm.
I think those are just huge stereotypes. They're huge things that
Yeah.
we need to break down. And
Mm.
I think it's all about the relationship you've got with your customers. And actually saying to your customers, hey, you can't do that. We're going to have to give you this level of
Yeah.
capability and experience. But what that means is it has to come from you.
Yeah.
You've got to understand your own bias, and you've
You
got to
do.
fall back on that. And you know what, Lysha, one of the
Mm.
things that really gets me about the recruitment industry, and I know this, I've been criticized for this on a few posts. Recruitment businesses need to look like the people that they represent.
Mm.
Okay?
Yeah.
If you have 20-year-old white graduates in your team and nothing else,
Yeah.
arguably, you don't represent the world
The
that is
working world. No.
available.
Yeah.
Okay? So when I see the recruitment industry talking about this subject,
Yeah.
they have this incredible ability to provide this huge level of diverse, talent. And then I look at the meet the team page.
I know,
I'm
and they
like,
all look the same as clones.
what are you doing? Like
I
this
know.
doesn't compute.
Yeah.
So we've got to look at ourselves in
We
terms of the
do.
industry. We've got to look at our own teams,
Mm.
and then we've got to kind of go out from that. And look, it's
Mm.
not easy. This is not easy stuff, right? It's not.
It's not, well, it's not, because it's not, a lot of recruiters who generally don't tend to listen to podcasts, let's be honest, because they just want the quickest book and they go from A to B as quick as they can. What you're talking about there is proper conversations. It's being really consultative. It's proper training and education piece to ourselves. What I love what you've said there. We have to be aware of our own bias before we can start educating our clients' bias. And I do find that really interesting. So what I want to, I guess for me, the beauty of having somebody like you that's got this, I guess, agnostic approach, because of the level of conversations you must be having across all your different businesses, and especially around the more PR piece that you're doing with GenX Talent. What would your legacy be? What would you like for your kids to say? That's what Dad did to the
Oh,
recruitment industry. Like, what's the legacy?
do you know what? It's a really amazing sort of thought, because there's lots of things going on at the same time here. I think when you talk about GenX Talent, I want to be responsible for building the largest GenX community of knowledge workers on the planet. Right?
Love it.
I would love to have a community of professional Gen Xers across the world that are part of our incredible Gen X community, that support, help each other. And actually, some of those Gen X people are also hiring managers, right? So
Mm.
you can be a member of the community and be a hiring manager and hire other Gen Xers and
Yeah.
hire people across the whole generational range. So that would be an amazing thing to do. My latest mission really is to provide everyday people with AI literacy. So this
Yeah.
is something that is really key for me and feels very now. AI literacy for everyday people. What I mean by that is people that aren't necessarily working in the tech industry, that are kind of, AI transformation directors and
Yeah.
all the data and AI people that work in everyday roles that can absolutely supercharge their productivity through AI literacy. So, Basecamp is the AI literacy pathway. It's a 2-hour lunch and learn. We do it online, we do it on site. It's £99 plus VAT. We built the pathway. We're now delivering that in the UK, Canada, and the US. We've only been going since October, and this thing
Wow.
has grown so significantly. One of the lovely things we're doing is building functional pathways. So we've just built AI for human resources. We're building AI for job seekers. We're building these incredible learning pathways because my view is that AI, when it's baked into workflows, will produce either the 4-day week or
Yep.
greater levels of productivity by a decent
Yep.
margin. So maybe the legacy is also around education and helping people to maximize the opportunity as well. And just doing the right thing by people. Lysha, I know it sounds really cheesy, but
No,
you know,
it's not. I want my legacy to be that she always did good by people. Yeah,
yeah,
that I did. I told the truth, and I cared about people's careers. So I think if you can play this to your children in 10 years' time, then I think you're definitely on track. We will make sure that there are links to the lunch and learns, links to the
sure.
community that you
Thank you.
run, because I'm sure that there will be people listening, and we do have a global audience that will want to get in touch and connect to you. And we'll be watching your story with great admiration and respect, but also gratitude, I imagine, for saying what's unsaid very often, and continuing to educate end user clients, but all of us as well. So I know you've got a very busy schedule, Simon, so thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to say what I say and to explain what I do. And if there's any Gen Xers out there in the recruitment industry that want to have a chat at any time, I'm here. Love to talk to you.
I was going to say there'll be plenty listening, trust me on that. Thank you so much, Simon. I really appreciate it.